some of our panelists to come. We're just going to kick start. I'm really excited to be here, and I really am grateful for all of you on a Saturday night. I'm sure this is what everyone in your home country is doing, right? Is sitting on a panel. Yes, Monica, this is the real world, Saturday night panels. So my name is Lee Winawiki. I'm a soil scientist, and I am the global research lead of Soil and Land Health at C4ECRAFT based in Nairobi. And I also co-founded the Coalition of Action for Soil Health in 2021 at the UN Food Systems Summit. And this is our final session. We've had 7 sessions in the Action on Food Hub. Woo! So I'm very excited. And I think it's appropriate that we end with policy, because we've talked about data, we've talked about scaling, we've talked about soil health essential to the Rio Conventions. And really, we can't do much if we don't have policy action. So we have a star-studded panel, and we're really excited that people have accepted to join, and I'm grateful. And I just want to highlight some of the objectives, right? So we want to share experiences. We have some countries here that are quite advanced in soil health policy, like Australia, and we have others like in Africa, Kenya, where we're just really starting. So I think we need to share experiences. We really need to foster collaboration and policy coherence. It would be great if we had policy coherence, Tilahoon. I think that would be a great dream. And identify priorities. So many definitions of soil health. This is the one I really like. It acknowledges that soil health is necessary for production, but also for biodiversity and ecosystem services. And if you only remember one thing from this panel, is I would love if we come away thinking about how to broaden the scope of soil health. It's actually essential for ecosystem restoration. It's essential for biodiversity conservation. We already know it's essential for food and nutrition security, but it's also essential for climate change adaptation and mitigation. So if we have any negotiators here, I understand that the agriculture agenda is not going well in the negotiations. However, can we at least try to get soil health in the final declaration? That would be huge. And that means that business as usual is no longer an option. We need increased investments. And that's how the Coalition of Action for Soil Health started. So the European Union was in our launch of the coalition in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I'm really grateful for the support and acknowledging the critical role of healthy soil into policy. We also need to answer those questions about the impact of ag management, land management on soil health. We must increase the number of hectares of land under healthy soil practices. And again, we worked with WBCSD. I was just on the panel with Diane Holdorf. We can increase financial investments 5 to 10-fold. This is actually a real target. So we have a number of amazing projects trying to bring data to life, and one is funded by NORAD, and it's like, we have the data, we have the maps, but we're not using these data to their full potential. And that includes bringing these data to inform policy. And Asaita is going to talk about how we're doing that in Africa. So it's about enhancing access and use, and really co-designing these use cases. So whether it's finance, restoration, climate reporting. We've also been working with 6 African governments to include soil carbon into the NDCs. We have Kenya here. We know that 80% of Kenya, for example, is rangelands. So I'm very sorry, we're not going to reach NDCs by only focusing on forests. It has to be by putting carbon back into the soil in rangelands. And then Asaita, I won't steal her thunder, but we've been working with the African Union because we have the opportunity to input soil health indicators into the continental process. Tilahoon and I were together for a week arguing with soil scientists of how to get soil health indicators into the CADA biannual review, and that QR code will get you to those briefs. And then, of course, we have global engagement, and if you scan this, you can join the coalition if you're not already a member. So we are really asking people to bring soil health into the climate negotiations. If you're in the corridors, I was stuck in the protests with the Brazilian negotiator, so I had lots of time to talk to her about including soil health into the declaration. So I think we should ignore all the speakers because we've had many changes. Not as speakers, ignore the graphics. Maybe I'll go back to the first graphic. Because instead of Bernard, we have a Seta, which is a great addition. So with that, I'm really excited to kickstart continental progress on soil health. And you can do roving mic, or you can use this. Okay, because this is the best microphone. Nick from Australia. I hope everyone knows that Australia had the first ever national soil advocate, Honorable Penny Wensley. And so Australia is the lead. So let's give Nick a round of applause. Thank you so
much. Evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Is the volume okay?
So
good. Okay, excellent. This is the best mic in the entire pavilion. It's fantastic.
So, yeah.
So my name is Nick Blong. I'm from the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry in Canberra, Australian Government. I work across sustainability and climate policy and program work in Australia. And one of those functions is in soil policy and soil health as well. I'm not a soil scientist. That's the first thing I say at every soil presentation I give. But I'm very pleased to talk about some of the work Australia's done in the soil space over the last few years. We haven't got it perfect. I'm glad we're sort of seen as certainly leaders in this space, but it is a work in progress. So I've just got a few points I'll talk through to help set the scene and give a bit of an update on the work that Australia is doing on soils. So first and foremost, obviously Australian soils are fundamental to Australia's ability to produce about $100 billion worth in food and fibre every year, most of what we export around the world. So soils are fundamental, not a surprise. But Australian soils are also some of the most ancient and most fragile soils on Earth, and certainly some of the most nutrient poor soils on the planet as well. And that's simply a reflection of tens of millions of years of weathering and a very ancient sort of continent. So productive farmland is challenging in Australia, and a lot of work has gone into soil health and soil management to be able to grow food and fibre in a sustainable way. To talking about the National Soils Strategy, which Lee referred to, including the position of a National Soils Advocate, there's about three main sort of pillars that sort of underpin our National Soils Strategy, which goes back to 2021, and there's also a National Soil Action Plan, which was released about 2 years ago, which provides like a 5-year implementation plan for the National Soils Strategy. So I'll talk through sort of these three pillars, and I'll keep my remarks fairly brief because I know the speakers in front of me that are going to add to this sort of conversation as well. But certainly the first pillar that we sort of saw in Australia has been fundamental to advancing Australia's sort of national soil management scheme was around sort of prioritising soil health. And as I said, that's a reflection of very ancient soils in Australia, low natural fertility of our soils, and also very low soil organic matter as well, soil organic carbon matter, I should say, which I think Lee referred to as well in the Kenya context. But certainly we have some of the lowest soil organic carbon content in the world. And I think the stat, if I can recall this stat correctly, if we added 0.1% soil organic carbon matter to just 1% of Australia's agricultural soils, it's the equivalent of taking about 1 million cars off the road every year. So the opportunities are important, which is why soil carbon is going to be a really important sort of part of the conversation going forward around carbon sequestration. But it's also not easy, and obviously farmers have to manage that in a very sort of volatile sort of landscape, and where they've got to sort of produce food and fibre, respond to commodity prices, and also droughts and seasonal sort of variations, which is just part of farming. So prioritising national soil health is really important, and a lot of that work goes to a lot of investment in research and development and the innovation system, working with universities, working with our states to better coordinate action on soils from an R&D perspective. Previously we've had quite a fragmented approach on soils with lots of different parts of the system doing their own thing, and so part of the National Soil Strategy has been like bringing that R&D effort together in a more coordinated way and sort of identifying what those shared priorities are. So that's prioritising soil health has been that first pillar in the National Soil Strategy. The second one is linked to it. These all build on each other, and that's strengthening soil knowledge and capability. And this goes to sort of the farmers' knowledge and ability to understand their soils across their farming business. We have over 300 soils in Australia, and every farm business will have diverse soils as well. So there's no one size fits all nationally, let alone at a state level, let alone at a farm business level. We also know that over the last 20 years or so, about 70% of the productivity gains achieved in Australian agriculture relate to improved soil knowledge on farm. So these are practices around increasing soil testing by farmers so they understand the qualities and health of their soils and what it means and what actions they can take to improve that soil over time. Precision inputs, obviously if you've got a better understanding of the quality of soil at a more sort of granular level, then you know how to manage it, what you need to do with it. And also just changes in practices in terms of things like no tillage sort of farming systems, and also better improved cropping rotation systems as well. So you use alternate crops to naturally improve the soil carbon and phosphorus content, for example. So Lee also mentioned data and so spatial information around soils. So a big part of the National Soil Strategy has been quite a large investment in national soils data at a national level. Again, we had very fragmented data on soils across Australia, which meant for our research community, it was really hard to actually engage and do comprehensive, sort of detailed research and trials on soil-related projects. So a good stat, I try and recall if I get this right, and someone's going to correct me if I get it wrong, but previously a soil PhD student might take 6 months basically to get the soil information around the country and harmonise it in a way that's actually useful to start their PhD work. Now we've got a national, it's digitised, it's harmonised nationally, and it takes them about 6 seconds. So it's just a huge amount of work to sort of bring soils information data into a national kind of set of standards, harmonise it, collect it, and make it accessible in a sort of usable, repeatable format. It's another practical example of work that's sort of underpinned the National Soil Strategy, and also connects to the R&D effort as well. And finally, the third pillar is around sort of connecting stakeholders to better manage soils. So I haven't got a graph. I should have brought a picture of Australia, but I think everyone knows it's a very large continent. Australia's agricultural land accounts for about 55% of land use in Australia, but huge variations in sort of climatic zones and soil qualities and agricultural systems. We've got tropical systems up in the north and temperate and cool climate systems down in the south, and everything in between. So as I said, there's no one size fits all. So a lot of the R&D, a lot of the extension outreach work has to be sort of tailored to specific regions, to specific production systems, and that takes a lot of time. But it also means you've got to have the system sort of work together in a more cohesive way in terms of researchers, state governments, federal governments, community groups, industry bodies. They've all got a role to play. And I think my final message in terms of like the National Soil Strategy and Action Plan that Australia's embarked on has been sort of making sure there's some shared priorities that everyone in the system has agreed on, identifying those priorities into an action plan that can actually lead to sort of practical steps that sort of delivers change, and also having a very farmer-centric perspective. It can't sort of just be sort of soil nerds, for want of a better word, coming up with a bit of a plan. It's actually got to be sort of deliver change on the ground. So having a very farmer-centric perspective is important as well. I'm sure I've gone way over my time, so I'll wrap it up, but I also just acknowledge that a lot of our work in soils in Australia also extends to partnerships we have in the Pacific region through FAO work and the Global Soils Partnership and the Pacific Soils Partnership as well. So very much about sort of providing some of the technical expertise and institutional knowledge and extending that into the Pacific region as well. So that's very much part of our work on soils. So sorry that was rapid fire, but hopefully gave a flavour of where we're at in Australia on soils. Thank you.
So for those who are in the Youth for Soil meeting that we just had, we also suggested that one of the things to drive the agenda forward is the shared priorities to drive it forward. And I loved your 3 points. And Penny will be very happy you mentioned Global Soil Partnership. I took a photo for her. So since we're talking about big continental Australia is a continent and Africa is a continent. And I would like to bring in Aceita Diallo. Not only is she an inspiring and very smart woman, she's also the head of the Soil Health Directorate at Agra. So thank you so much, Aceita. Let's welcome her. Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Lee, for involving us in this very important discussion around soil health. And you are a very big advocate for this soil health. Thank you very much. I'm a senior specialist in charge of soil health, as she mentioned, at Agra. And Professor Tilahun here is the director of our Sustainable Farming Directorate under Agra. Agra has been a critical partner for the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan development, as Lee mentioned. Since the preparation of the summit, which happened in Nairobi in 2024, Agra, through its experts, contributed to the development of a technical document leading to the happening of the summit. And we were also here very critical of the delivery of the summit, together with many of our partners, including ICRAF C4, including IFDC, including AFAP, including FAO, so many of them. So in Nairobi in 2024, the continent, through the highest leadership, the head of states, the ministers, they convened in Nairobi and agreed the continent needs really to work on fertilizer, but also on soil health. This is when they took really the commitment of going broadly in the soil health management. If we recall, in Abuja in 2006, the continent gathered, but they mainly spoke about fertilizer, because at that time, the continent was using only 80 kgs per hectare in 2006. So the productivity was low, and they felt they should really look for ways to increase the consumption of fertilizer to 50 kgs per hectare. But in 2024 in Nairobi, then the soil health has a broad area of investment came up, not only around fertilizer, but also around all of the component. And this is where it was also clarified that when the continent is talking about fertilizer, it's both organic, but also inorganic, and all the soil amendment component. So it was really very clear. So the head of states, as I said, they endorsed the Nairobi Declaration, but also the 10-year action plan, where they stated very clearly they need to triple the production and consumption of fertilizer and locally produced fertilizer based on what we have seen during the COVID crisis, but also the other war-induced crisis, because then the movement of fertilizer was made very difficult. So the continent is calling for locally produced, but also increasing the use of quality product, as I said, fertilizer, organic, inorganic, soil amendment, and all over areas. So in the Nairobi Declaration, it was also made very clear the technology should reach at least to 70% of smallholder farmers, because on the continent, the smallholder farmers are the major farmers on the continent. So 70% of the smallholder farmers are targeted to get access to quality input, to quality technologies, and also reversing at least 30% of the soil degradation on the continent. The action plan has 4 outcomes. I'm not going to list all of them here, and under which we have almost many action points which are highlighted under each action outcomes. And with the outcome, we have many areas of interest. We have soil testing and mapping. Australia mentioned it now, because if the continent is calling to tripling the production and the locally produced fertilizer, so they need to also get very specific ones targeted to soils and also crops. To do so, we need the soil testing and mapping, which is really very critical. We have a fertilizer use efficiency under these outcomes. We have policy and advocacy. We have capacity building, but also we have extension. But because taking these technologies to smallholder farmers, we need very strong extension system. This is also highlighted under the 10-year action plan. But all of this, it also appeared partnership is very critical. I heard Lee talking about it, and also the one from Australia, because not one single organization can do what I highlighted already. So partnership is very critical, and under the action plan, it was provided to have coalitions which will take into account each component, each areas of development of this action plan. Lee mentioned one of them, the Coalition for Soil Health, but we also have Coalition for Policy and Advocacy, we have Coalition for Extension, we have Coalition for Soil Information System, we highlighted it here, and we have a Coalition for Innovation and Technology Development. All of this is underlined under the action plan, and we have already all of these coalitions which are set up and started working to see how best they can support the implementation of this action plan. And if we have a continental framework, now we have to go through regions and to countries, because the title of this discussion, from policy to ground. And this is when now AGRA continue and his partners, we continue to supporting the regional economic communities to cascade the continental framework. We worked with ECOWAS from West Africa. We also worked with EAC at Eastern Africa region. We worked with SADC, which is the Southern Africa region, to develop their regional specific priorities based on the continental framework. And this is already done. Now we are moving down to countries, and we are supporting currently Kenya to go through the process. Since last year, from the summit, Kenya started already pushing its own process to implement, to domesticate this action plan, because we have a continental, we now have a regional, but now the actions need to happen at the ground. And Kenya is doing it. We supported them. We supported Burkina Faso. When I say we, is AGRA and other partners supporting the countries together with AUDA-NEPAD, but also African Union. We supported Nigeria, which has done also their roadmap. We supported Ethiopia, which has already their roadmap. Uganda, Senegal, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia. How we do it is based on the readiness and the interest of each country. We don't just go and start working with them and saying you should domesticate. It comes from the request from the countries which are ready and willing and committed to domesticate the 10-year action plan. So this is what we are doing, and still working at continental level. As Lee said, we worked very recently with AUDA-NEPAD to develop the indicators, because at the end of the day, these indicators are going to be part of a biannual review process of the African Union. So we need to report on how far we have gone since the Nairobi summit on implementing the action plan, and also in improving our soil health on each country, each region, and going forward. Thank you very much.
So, as you can see, Aceita is very busy organizing 55 member states to get soil health implemented at policy and on the ground. So let's give her another round of applause. Thank you, Aceita. That's amazing. Amazing. So now I'm very excited because we're going to hear about what's happening in Europe. And for those of you who are soil lovers, you know that literally just days ago there was the EU soil monitoring law. And I'm really excited to hear progress, and I will bring your slide up. So please, I don't want to mispronounce how to say your name. So I will let him introduce. Okay, let's invite our European Commission colleague up here. I don't want to mispronounce it. Oh, I don't hear your applause.
Good afternoon. I'm Giacomo Grassi. Don't worry about mispronunciation. I work at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. I'm also part of the IPC Task Force Bureau on Greenhouse Gas Inventory. I'm telling that because the greenhouse inventory are supposed to report emission and removal from soil. Many countries do it, not all, because the soil, we know that the soil is the largest carbon pool. There is more carbon below ground than above ground, we know it for sure, but it's the largest unknown in terms of fluxes. That is what counts. And measuring fluxes and carbon stock change is very difficult. That's why many inventories still do not report carbon on soil. But I think initiatives like that should stimulate further action. But coming to our topic, in Europe, we face major gaps in knowledge and data. There is something a lot that we do not know, and what we know is not great, in the sense that we know that 60 to 70% of soil in European Union are not in healthy condition. We know that up to the soil degradation cause a loss up to 50 billion of euro per year. As part of the European Green Deal, in 2021, the European Union introduced the EU soil strategy, which was followed 2 years later in 2023 with a proposal on soil monitoring law. As you just said, a few weeks ago, this proposal was eventually approved, finally approved. And this is a major milestone because it's the first ever EU legislation on soil health. And let me illustrate the three main points. First of all, the ultimate goal, the vision, aspirational vision, is to achieve healthy soil across all Europe by 2050. Some of the key elements include, first of all, a harmonized monitoring and reporting of soil health that will be assessed through physical, biological, and chemical descriptors using a standardized EU methodologies. And the number of, we already have, of course, monitoring of soil health at the EU level, but the number of plots and descriptors and parameters that will be monitored through this legislation far exceed what we have now. This information will then become part of the reporting that from 2030 member states will provide to European Commission. In turn, the European Commission will provide to European member states technical support and financial support to achieve that reporting objective. Secondly, the EU legislation address the management of contaminated site. Member states will identify, map, and assess potentially contaminated site, and also act where the risk of contamination is high. And this includes monitoring also emerging contaminants, including pesticides and microplastics. Third, the legislation promotes sustainable soil management. There are no new binding obligation for farmers. This is something always difficult to impose from a political point of view. Instead, farmers will receive technical support through advice, training, and capacity building to help them to adopt practices that help healthy and resilient soil management. The lower part of the slide summarizes the EU soil protection framework, which can be described as a puzzle with three connected pieces. The first piece is the political framework, which is comprised the soil monitoring law and the EU soil strategy. The second piece is knowledge management through the EU Soil Observatory. If you click on the QR code, it will bring you to this EU soil monitoring soil observation, which, believe me, is full of data and knowledge. Is the main EU hub for data and knowledge of EU soil. The third piece is funding research through the EU soil mission and through the Horizon Europe, which is the instrument that Europe has to finance research in Europe. There will be about 1 billion euro that to support 100 of soil related research projects, including international one. And of course, if we don't measure, we cannot manage. And if we have to measure well to manage better. Thank you. Welcome.
So, you didn't tell everyone, but like Nick, not a soil scientist, but speaking very eloquently about soil. So maybe we need the non-soil scientists to be the advocates for soil. So let's give them a round of applause. Giacomo. Awesome. So now I'd like to just have a short, you're going to get a little bit dizzy, a short conversation with some local advocates on the ground. So I'd like to invite Julius from Kenya up to the panel, Sunday up to the panel, and Per Frederick. So let's give them a round of applause. So my colleague Sig, to round out the panel for gender, is deserted us. She's on a boat, so I'm saying that no, I'm going to sit here. You sit there. Publicly, that she's on the Amazon River, so we can excuse her, right? So I just want to bring in some more voices, and then I would like to hear some questions from the audience. So I'd like to start with you, Per Frederick. Even though I'm married to a Norwegian, I cannot have any Norwegian accent, so I apologize. So I hope everyone knows that NORAD has been a long-term supporter of integrated land restoration, climate resilience, and so you have a lot of experience in this, even from the forestry sector. So it would be great to hear what levers you think we need or can leverage to address the key challenges and really bring some policy coherence. And we've heard about the need for data, stakeholder engagement. So I really open the floor to you, and we look forward to your inputs. Do you have a mic or you need mine? The mic situation here is to be desired. You don't turn it on. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you to the previous speakers. I am not a soil scientist either. I am actually tempted to paraphrase the U.S. General Patton of World War II fame, who is said to have said about logistics that he didn't know anything about it, but he sure wanted lots of it. And it's the same with me and soils. I don't know much about it, but I want lots of it, and it better be good. And I mean, the case, several have mentioned the case for healthy soils, and it's pretty obvious that it's sort of a development kinder egg with upsides of various kinds. I'm not sure we have priced it right yet, though. The consensus now about from the sort of serious macroeconomists working on what is actually the social cost of carbon emissions are now estimating that to be about $1,000 a ton. So, given the ability of soils to store carbon, we probably should spend more money on that, like we should on tropical forest and other things. But the natural solutions to climate change, given this rapidly, it's not more than 5-6 years ago when we discussed the social price of carbon of $100 a ton. So there's been, it's an order of magnitude. And that, of course, changes the logic, strengthens the rationale. The rationale was strong enough before, but it is increasingly strong. The upside of that, or the opposite side of that, of course, is that deteriorating soil health is a similar magnitude problem. The recent adoption of the EU soil monitoring law is really a powerful message about the importance of the issue and the importance of documenting and monitoring this issue. So for us, this is a first order priority in our food work, but also more broadly. We of course support efforts to coordinate the implementation of the Nairobi Declaration, both between stakeholders and countries. Coordination is vital, but it needs to go beyond agreements. we need to develop tools and strategies that make a real difference for farmers and communities. We do some things that are more indirectly. And I would argue, for example, that the support we have given to the government of Kenya on forest restoration is actually also a very massive effort for soils. When your forest cover in the land with the soil quality and the topography of Ethiopia increases by 7 to 8 percentage points, that has huge ramification for soil quality as well. One really high potential integrative tool, and it was touched upon, I think, by everyone in our view, is open source, open access digital soil data, which can really bridge the gap both between science and policy, but also between policy and action. Lean mentioned a program that we're financing with CGIAR and the Varda Foundation, which we think really has massive potential in this area, and it's a part of the ecosystem that we will put a lot of emphasis on and be willing to put money on in terms of building these systems and enabling countries to build them to their national specifications. I like that 6 months, 6 seconds metaphor for the PhD student. It's the same for the farmers, right? It's really a force multiplier when you have those kinds of systems. Anyway, the collaboration and partnership is clearly the pathway to progress and scaling on this. We work together across borders. Sorry, borders. I can never get used to kissing the mic. It's not natural for me. Across borders and sectors, putting country priorities and the needs of farmers front and center, and really sort of efficiently deploying both our expertise and our resources to accelerate the transition from policy and into the specific measures. So I think that's basics of what we're doing. In-country work is important to us, and we have a set of Africa country partners that we really want to expand our cooperation with, including through your program. Thank you.
Totally agree. Excellent points. And NORAD is doing quite a bit both on soils and forestry, land restoration. That's fantastic. And you mentioned Kenya 3 times, so I think it's natural that we go to the Kenya representative. And thank you so much, Julius, for stepping in. And I'm very excited to hear from you, but please introduce yourself. I think there's 100, is it true? In the Kenya delegation. We have a big Kenya delegation, so I'm really proud because, you know, I live in Kenya and I'm proud of the Kenyan government and what you're doing. So please introduce yourself and please tell us you're involved at the national level, you're involved with the CETA and the African Union at the continental level. So I'll let you choose what you want to focus on. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Indeed, it is my pleasure to be in this panel. Thank you for the opportunity. Probably I'm just representing Kenya, and we are going to see what happens in the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan. You remember that we had this convention in Nairobi. Declarations were passed, and it is important for me to give highlights of so far how the implementation at the focal level has been going on. Kenya has devolved systems of governance from national to devolved units, popularly known as counties. And it is important to see what happens in the soil fertility space in the country. Indeed, there are opportunities that arose after the convention, and what so far is going on. First of all, we have vibrant soil health restoration programs going on, whereby efforts to do soil sampling and testing for precision application of fertilizers takes place, as well as other fertilizer management initiatives going on in the country. There is an opportunity also in climate smart agriculture, we implement our strategy, Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy, that touches on issues of soil fertility and soil health. And there has been a lot of promotion in innovation and technologies to counter degradation of soils. Some which involve the use of drought-tolerant crops for adoption, conservation agriculture, and integrated soil fertility management practices are among some practices that are important to alleviate degradation of soils. Capacity building for farmers and technical extension staff, whereby we measure on fertilizer use efficiency, organic amendments, and regenerative practices that regenerate fertility of the soils. There are also opportunity in private sector investment, whereby there is a partnership in agribusiness in fertilizer in the area of blending, distribution, and certain innovations around fertilizer. And Kenya gives a space and a platform for interaction in the agribusiness space. More opportunity for women and youth, especially where it comes to input supply, involves and creates opportunities for women and youth to earn livelihood income from fertilizer, and also soil health enterprises. On policy and governance support, there is a harmonization of policies. Several policies are there. There are efforts to harmonize some of the policies to align them with the African Union soil health agenda, so that they are aligned to the African, that's regional and global health agendas. Research works has also been going on, whereby universities of Nairobi and our research organization do some works also in to pilot soil fertility technologies, biofertilizers, and digital advisory tools in the country.
Asante.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius. Let's give him a round of applause. As you can tell, Kenya's doing a lot, and we're really grateful. And I think Asante will agree, they're one of the champion countries in the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan. So congratulations. And Sunday, I know that you're not going to, you don't speak for all youth, but I really would love to hear from the youth perspective, your experiences. You heard Julius mention soil health innovations for, creating finance and income. So anywhere where you want to go, I'm so grateful for you to be here. And I know you're also a GLFX landscape restoration hero. So over to you, Sunday.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I'm Sunday Geoffrey. I'm the coordinator of Support Mighty Cameroon and the GLFX Yaoundé chapter. I work with the local communities, with indigenous pastoralist communities, and also with young people. So in Cameroon, it is often said that what Cameroonians need are not policies. The policies are there. What they need are implementations. And as a young person, I've had the opportunity to work across with different generations and with different communities. And I'm also opportune to be leading different youth networks. And I've come to to understand the realities between policies and implementation. And when I was invited to speak about how we can close the gaps, I was like, okay, but this is very important. And I was asking myself, when the policy makers, I'm not one, but when they sit to develop the policies, who are they developing the policies for? When we talk about soil, I work with local farmers. We encourage them, support them in regenerative agriculture. And here, when we talk about adaptation, about restoration, we are talking about, most people today are talking about agroecology. They are talking about improving soil health. When we are designing the policies, are we thinking about the farmers? Are we thinking about the young people? And if we think about them, do we intentionally engage them in the development of those policies? Because I think that the first way to get them engaged, to get young people or farmers engaged in the process of implementation is to first of all intentionally engage them in the process of development, policy development. So what I see most often is that people are consulted, some people are consulted for formalities. It's not intentional, because when it's intentional, it is inclusive. When we do inclusive consultation, we have a diverse perspective. People identify themselves in those policies, and they see the need to participate in the implementation. So one thing I do as a young person is building youth capacity in policy development, because I understand that there's also that capacity gaps. In February, we conducted a survey to understand with youth climate leaders, to see how many of them understand, know about existing policies, climate policies in Cameroon. And surprisingly, over 100 youth leaders participated, 150 youth leaders participated across the country, and over 80% of them do not even know existing climate policies. And if we don't know about those policies, how do they engage in the implementation? So it becomes tricky, right? And since February, we have been organizing a series of workshops to educate and to build youth capacity in policy development. So so I think that it is important that policymakers, especially our national governments, develop the political will to support communities, to support young people by maybe strengthening their capacities, by maybe directing resources, financial resources, so that they can, young people and communities can actually engage in the implementation of policies, so that the policies should not end at the level of the beautiful offices. I was told that in offices where policies are developed, those offices are very beautiful. There's a lot of knowledge in those offices. But at the end of the day, as a local farmer, how do I contribute? So by directing resources, by building capacity, by intentionally educating communities on how to implement those policies, I think that we'll be able to close the gap between the development, existing policies, and the implementation on the field. Thank you.
So we have a couple policymakers, government officials here. I think this is a real tangible action that we can take on. Do we have youth in the Kenya Steering Committee for the action plan? Do we have youth in the Australian government? I think this is like something very tangible that we could do by including youth. So I know it's Friday night and everyone's waiting for their beer, but I want to create a word cloud before I give Louise Rangel the floor, and then Elizabeth will close. A word cloud. So you get one word, and we're going to construct a verbal word cloud about your wish, your call to action, whatever it may be. So grab your microphones. Sunday, I'm going to start with you, then to Julius, then to Per Frederick. Let's our word cloud for call to action for soil health. Go for it, Sunday.
Collaboration.
Integration and partnership.
It's a long word.
Hyphenated.
Soil carbon price.
All right, thank you so much. Let's thank our panel. Thank you so much, you guys. Great. Oh, I didn't hear that. Let's thank our panel. Yes, go ahead. I see Tilahoon has his hand up. Do you have a question? You have to come. Tilahoon is our new panel member. Go ahead, Tilahoon. Introduce yourself and what's your question?
Good. No, thank you, panelists.
You have to eat it, remember?
Eat it, yeah. So I have a question to you. We talk about a movement from policy to action. And how the policy works, is policymakers are doing it when they have incentives. Their incentives are votes, elections. Soil health doesn't bring elections. Farmers have to get, they have to reach millions of farmers with seeds, with fertilizers, with easy things that can move around 6 months or 4 months before election so that they can mobilize people. That's how it works in Africa. So now my question to you is, what's your entry point to influence policy? What do you have it as a card to influence policy? So be it in Europe or in Latin America or in Africa. So if I'm a policy maker, what do I get out of it for short term, while still I acknowledge that so long-term benefits will come?
Thank you, Tilahoon. And I think we'll make Luis Rangel address that in his remarks. So my new best friend, I hope I can say that publicly. We've been together now for 2 weeks, and we have one more week together. I invite Luis Rangel to share his experiences from Brazil, and also to just get us excited about soil health in Brazil. We've had ABC for 10 years, and they have the most progressive nationally determined contribution. If you haven't read Brazil's NDC, read it and get inspired. And so I invite Luis, you can use this mic, it's really good, to the floor from the Ministry of Agriculture from Brazil. Oh, let's give him a better welcoming. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lee, it was a privilege to meet you last week. So, in fact, we are best friends now. So, I'm not a soil scientist, but I'm a soil lover, like you said. So, I'm an agronomist by background, and I'm a policymaker from Brazil. So, my job to try to implement this all frameworks by the science. So, like a closer remarks, we need to understand that we are in the same direction. Your words is so familiar from Brazil, because the challenge is the same in Europe, in other countries, in Africa countries, in Australia. So we need to understand the soil to try to address the better policy for the soil. And an old friend of mine tried to explain in the middle of the 90s that the soil, if I need to choose only one indicators, I need to choose the soil health. Why? Because the soil is the basis of everything. Like you mentioned, for example, pesticides is very important, it's a pollutant too, but we can understand the pesticides in the soil health. We can understand, for example, the pollution from the nitrogen or phosphorus in the soil health perspectives. And Brazil have a good experience since the 70s to try to improve nature-based solutions for soil. So we start with use, for example, nitrogen biological fixations, and of course we have a proud to receive from Mariangela Hungria the World Food Prize, and based on the work of the World Food Prize is based on soil health. So it's a common challenge, but we have some troubles. We have some issues that we need to solve. For example, I present in the side section thematic sessions in last week in the conference a proposal very very close your ideas to try to create a proxies for the carbon market by the soil health, because we have in the soil analysis then organic soil matter, but it's not enough. But we can move forward to use, for example, understanding the enzymes and biological performance in the soil, and go step by step more close to the perspective for the market. Of course, nowadays it's very complicated to create an MRV solid to try to invite investment, but we have science together with us in this challenge. So the perspective for this COP, Lee know about that, is not a COP with another initiative. It's a COP for implementation. You mentioned about that. So implementation is the key. You mentioned about that. We need to implement it. And so the action agenda for this COP proposed by the Minister of Agriculture is RAIZ. RAIZ is a resilient agriculture investment for net zero land degradation. Land degradation is based on soil health. So we have a perspective. So we need to understand everything that we have here to try to promote and invite the investment, invite the finance guys to invest in land recovery, to put more profitability in the farmers, to understand the needs, the different needs from Africa, from Europe, from the United States, from Australia too. So that is the perspective that we have to address and to face on it. So Lee, thank you very much to give me this possibility to try to expand a little bit more how can Brazil dealing with it. And we have a challenge that we need to learn with you, and of course Europe could be a very good school to understanding, because statistics for agriculture is a complicated situation, you know, because we have some census in some days, but I cannot understand how I cannot believe, fully believe in FAO-stat, in statistics from FAO. I can believe in Eurostat. I can believe in USDA stats. A little bit in the Brazilian statistics, but in the FAO is very complicated because it's hard to collect data, it's hard to treat this data, it's hard to send, because in some cases the data show not show the best picture that you need to show. So, but we need, like a science, we need to do this information. So we need to work together to try to understand how can we address better data, real data, not fake data, better data, to understand more how about our soil health and try to improve in the framework of RAIZ. I think RAIZ could be a good framework to address soil health for the future. Thank you very much.
So you heard it, we're now best friends, right? This is like recorded. So we cannot have a session about policy without hearing from farmers, from the voices of farmers, from a female farmer especially. So I am very honored that Elizabeth, who has literally arrived this morning, this is her 10th event for the day, the CEO, President of the East Africa Farmers Federation. Elizabeth, please, we want to hear your closing remarks. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lee, for that wonderful introduction. My name is Elizabeth Nsimadala. I'm a smallholder farmer and the president of Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. And of course, you cannot speak about soil health without speaking about farmers. And let me first of all start by acknowledging the different speakers for sharing your experience in soil health, and also the different initiatives that you're deploying in your various institutions. Maybe Lee, and what I missed from the different speakers is how they are collaborating and working with farmers to make sure that they sustain some of these initiatives. Maybe it's because you had limited time to maybe elaborate on that, but I would appreciate if we can have formalized partnerships with especially farmers organizations so that most of these initiatives that are donor-driven can be sustainable after the end of some of the programs. What is coming from myself and the constituency that I represent in terms of sustaining these initiatives, we cannot sustain them without having robust funding, especially for conservation programs on the side of the farmers, for streamlining access to incentives, different incentives. But also, most of the speakers mentioned about the transitioning to regenerative farming systems. We need financing to make sure that we have this. And of course, the technical assistance that is needed on the side of the farmers. Soil health is a science. So from where I see it, we really need to have technical assistance. We need to have our capacities built to understand the different soil health and management practices that we really need to put to scale. Some of the initiatives, we are already doing them, like growing cover crops, like reduced tillage. But we are doing them because it's a way of our life. We actually don't understand the kind of impact that they have on soil health. So I think it's important that we have the technical bit of it. Then, of course, a clear definition and framework to improve long-term land management and climate resilience. I think we need to really make soil health concept well understood by by the farmers. We really need to, how do we unpack this so that when we speak about soil health, what are we talking about on the side of the farmer? Some of these concepts, we really need to see how we can bring them down to the fields where action happens. Then, of course, increased investments. I mentioned about the technical capacity, but also the expertise that is needed so that we can help the farmers to implement these practices, and with special attention and focus on youth and women, but also doing these through farmers' organizations, through cooperatives for sustainability. And we need to support research and science-based and also innovations and tools, and help farmers to transition by embracing innovations and digitization. Then, of course, the political will, I can say it's already there because of the different political commitments. But then how do we amplify this to make sure that the political will turns into tangible benefits, it turns into tangible investments in the ag sector? We need to embrace mutually benefiting partnerships in order to implement some of the action plans, like the 10-year action plan for Africa. And farmers must be at the center of all this. Then something interesting on knowledge management and experience sharing, on soil protection framework, the soil management data. We need to have open access to digital soil data. And example from the EU, as Africa, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can as well learn from what is already happening in EU, for example. Alignment of policies to the continental and the global agenda. At the African Union, we have the Soil Health Initiative. But also in the EU, how do we align some of these initiatives, for example, to the EU Green Deal and some of the other declarations in Africa, like the Abuja Fertilizer Declaration? How do we align it with the Soil Health Initiative? And of course, we are here at COP. And so as we speak about soil health, are we following up on some of the discussions that are happening on the negotiations? For example, around discussions on adaptation, on the global goal on adaptation, the loss and damage, discussions around the national determined contribution, the NDCs. How do we make sure that soil health is a priority in some of these discussions and initiatives in order to be able to attract investments? Because we cannot speak about all this without, speaking about soil health. So in conclusion, is of course to register our commitment as farmers in ensuring that we embrace practices for soil health, because the future of our food systems is heavily dependent on our soils. And finally is to really thank you, Lee, for moderating this session, and all the panelists, all the speakers, and all the organizers of this event. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to say anything after Elizabeth. That was absolutely brilliant. This has been live streamed, and we'll put it on the Coalition of Action for Soil Health website. And I invite all the panelists up for a group photo. And thank you again to Andrea, who's been loading the slides, doing all the AV, doing the recording. Thank you, Andrea. All right, thanks everyone. Please come up front.